Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo, and usually we're here on Thursdays, but this week we are here on Friday, and every week we gather to chat with pros about how they are using Gig Performer, with semi-pros, with hobbyists, everybody who's really using Gig Performer to help them get the job done, whatever that means for them. We have interviewed keyboard players, guitarists, front of house engineers, really the full gamut of musicians, and we're really happy to be here today. Now, for those of you who have popped onto the stream today, do let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. I'd love to say hello to you personally. And if you've been following us, then you will know that today we were supposed to be interviewing Paul Gear, and he was going to be sharing all about how he is moved from his MoDX exclusively over to Gig Performer and his MoDX using this hybrid setup. And unfortunately, we had to postpone that episode, but don't worry, we actually have a great episode today where instead of kind of going through a pretty advanced setup, we're going to go back to the basics. And today, we're going to talk about hosting your plugins live inside of Gig Performer. So if you have some friends maybe who are newer to the software, who want to have a better understanding of it, this would be a fantastic episode to share with them. It looks like we've got Felipe in the chat from Brazil. Hello, Felipe. So glad that you're here. Love your cool AI, maybe AI, little icon there. That's really awesome. Okay, so throughout the stream, feel free to pop your comments in if you have any questions about anything I'm sharing. Would love to help clarify. We've got Palmore Robinson coming in from Florida. Thank you so much for being here. Elkane81 from the Netherlands. Welcome. Giacomo De Leone from Swiss. Thank you for being here. So happy to see you. So, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to be going through the basics of Gig Performer today. But first, I want to just lay a bit of an outline for why Gig Performer over a DAW, why Gig Performer even over hardware. It looks like we've got a new guest, Benjamin Shreve, tuning in for the first time live from Bentonville, Arkansas. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I hope today is super valuable for you. Let us know where you discovered us, Benjamin. Definitely curious how you found out about Gig Performer. So let's just start in the land of DAWs. If you jump into DAWs, then maybe you think, oh, my DAW can do this. But I just want to talk about why that might not be the best option for you during your live performance. And we're also going to go through why plugins are powerful and effective and all of that stuff. It's going to be a great time. So why is it that your DAWs are not the most effective and powerful way to perform live? The primary reason for that is that plugins hosted inside of a DAW are really optimized for recording. They were made as a different type of tool, and so many people do have some amount of success using them for live performance, but we don't necessarily want to jump in there and assume that you can perform with a DAW. Some DAWs do have performance functionality, but they're just a tool built for a different thing. It would sort of be like doing a cross-country trip in a golf cart. You probably could do it, but it may or may not be the best idea. Now, hardware is a tried and true method. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment here. But who is Gig Performer for, right? If the DAW thing is not necessarily the best place for you to start if you're trying to perform with your plugins live, then who can use Gig Performer and who would really benefit from its abilities? It's really anybody. Keyboardists, guitarists, vocalists, drummers, front of house engineers. If you're making music in any context, be it live, at home, hobbyist, professional, then Gig Performer is going to be for you because it's going to give you the ability to create and manage your sounds live. Now, what is Gig Performer? Gig Performer is a tool, and it lets you host and control your plugins and hardware. Now, we have a much more robust definition of that on the website, but if we're just starting at brass tacks here, Gig Performer, which you can open on your computer, will let you open virtual instruments or virtual effects and connect them together so that you can build sounds. Now, the reason it's not just something that lets you chain plugins together is because in addition to being able to do that, you can also turn those sounds that you've built into songs. Take those songs and turn them into set lists. You can integrate naturally with your hardware. So if you're coming from a hardware background and you're trying to begin to dip your foot into the plug-in realm, Gig Performer also welcomes integration with hardware. We can control hardware and also even use your hardware sounds and affect them with audio effects, which is the other type of plug-in control that you will see inside of Gig Performer. So it is an instrument. Gig Performer is your instrument. Looks like we've got a comment coming in from Felipe. We'll just answer this quickly. Ooh, it's a lot of text on the screen. I never used GP. I used to play on Chord Kronos. One thing I loved was changing instruments and not cutting the sound on the moment of change. Will I be able to do that inside of Gig Performer? Yes, and I will demonstrate it on this very day. It looks like Nemanja put in the comment already that feature is called Patch Persist. So it is available and super powerful. Okay, so that is what Gig Performer is, but let's briefly talk about what Gig Performer is not. Gig Performer is not a DAW, so it's not designed for producing songs. You probably are not going to mix an album inside of Gig Performer. That would be another example of driving cross-country in a golf cart. Additionally, it is not for only keyboard players, and I think this is a common misconception. People think, oh, I'm a guitar player, this program is not for me. Actually, we have many guitar players using Gig Performer and doing things that I think would be extremely challenging to do in a typical pedal board setup. If you want to know more about that, you can check out our Gig Performer in Action thread on our forum, and we also have many live streams of Gig Performer guitar players coming through showing their setups. We even have a guitarist who has been able to run Gig Performer on a gaming PC, which is small enough to fit in his pocket, which is kind of cool and pretty powerful. Now, I just want to add that while Gig Performer is not designed for recording, it is possible to record your performances. So if you're looking to capture your live performance and listen back to it later, you absolutely can do that. And it does integrate well with your DAWs. So if you would like to use Gig Performer as your instrument to record into a DAW, there are many ways that we can do that. And one of them is actually a built-in device native to Gig Performer that allows you to send audio and MIDI to a DAW. So it gives you true separation if you're somebody who's interested in recording, that allows you to pull your sounds and record them into a DAW. So, awesome. Looks like Benjamin answered where he found us, so I'll just pull that up on the screen here. I'm not kidding. I found out about Gig Performer because I was talking to ChatGPT and asked if there was any ways I could use the plugins I have in Pro Tools, but in a live setting. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that ChatGPT shared that with you. Awesome. So in summary of all of this, if you need to do it live or you want to do it while you're playing in your bedroom, Gig Performer will help you do it. Gig Performer is the way to get you there. If you have any questions, I'm about to jump into Gig Performer itself here, and we're going to explore the fundamental things that will help you get started if you're brand new to Gig Performer, and would love to mention that you can try Gig Performer for free for 14 days. You can go to our website, download a free trial. It is fully functional, except with a couple of audio cutouts every now and then. So it'll give you a real ability to test and see if the software is for you. So let's jump over to Gig Performer. And you'll see on the screen right now, I have some stuff set up, which just for the purposes of being efficient during our time together is necessary. But when you open Gig Performer for the first time, you will be presented with this. And Gig Performer has a couple of different primary menus that you need to be aware of. The first is what you'll see when you open Gig Performer, which is our wiring view. And this is where we are going to build our sounds and our audio effects. So if you are trying to process vocals or guitar, you'll process them here. Or if you're trying to trigger it with a keyboard, that will also happen here. Now, the other view is the panels view, and this is where you're going to build controls. So in this example of this particular rack space, I have some very simple filter cutoff and sidechained things here. And the panel view also has an edit view where you can add these little knobs and faders to control your stuff. And then we have the set list view, which is where we take the sounds that we build and organize them into songs. Now, I'm realizing I forgot one key point that is worth jumping back for, and that is that if you would like to use Gig Performer, it is likely that you have everything you need already. So if you are a keyboard player, even if you're using hardware, it's very likely that your keyboard has MIDI capability. And if that is the case, you can use that keyboard with Gig Performer. Now, if you're a guitar player, you're going to need a way to get your audio into Gig Performer. And in general, we always recommend an audio interface of some sort. And occasionally, depending on what you're doing, you might want a controller. I really like this one. This is the Novation Launch Control XL, and this just lets me control parameters. So you probably have what you need to get started. If you're already playing music, you probably have some of these things, but at bare minimum, you'll need your instrument, which could be whatever your instrument is. We recommend an audio interface as well, and sometimes having a controller can be helpful. I actually had a chat with somebody recently who didn't realize that you could use Gig Performer without actually needing to touch your laptop. And that's key, because if you're performing, you don't want to be looking like you're sending emails while you're playing keyboard. So it's really powerful. Looks like we have a comment coming in from Thomas. Gig Performer has been a revelation for me as a guitarist. Aside from the bankable scalability, using lots of plugins, the wiring schema is fantastic for creating new sounds in a relatable format. Yes, absolutely, and we're about to look at that right now. So jumping back over, as a quick review, you will immediately be presented the first time you open Gig Performer with the wiring view and just this sort of open format. And our other two views is our panel view, which is where we build our controls, which also has the edit view to do the building, and our set list view, which is where we take our sounds and put them into songs. So let's go ahead and back up here. I want to talk about the wiring view. This is one of the things that sets Gig Performer apart from performing with a DAW, and even sets Gig Performer apart from many of the live performance software options that are on the market, which is that we use a graphic matrix to build our sounds as opposed to channel strips. If that doesn't mean anything to you, it will in a moment. So if I want to build my first sound inside of Gig Performer, I do that in this area, and this area, all of the things we're about to add and all of the controls, is referred to as a rack space. That's Gig Performer terminology for your sounds and effects and your controls. So what we're about to do is build a sound, and that sound is going to live inside of this rack space. It's really easy to build a new sound. All you have to do is right mouse click, and Gig Performer is automatically going to know which VSTs you have on your computer. Now, if you need to know more about VSTs, we have a wonderful video by Cameron Winters who talks about how to get VSTs into your computer and all of these things. So I'll refer you over there. But for now, I'm going to come over here to Cherry Audio, which is one of our partners, and I'm going to add one of their devices that I really like called the Whirlybird, which is down here under W. So once you find, oh, looks like this is getting cut off because of the screen share. So let's try that one more time so you can see it. So once you find the Whirlybird, you're just going to select, it's still cut off. All right, I'll choose a different one. I really want the Whirlybird though. Hold on, let's try one more time. See if we can get it. Yep, can't get it. Well, right below Vintage Modular is the Whirlybird. And I'm going to choose the VST version. And when I click on it, Gig Performer is going to pull in that plugin, and you'll see it represents on the screen as this little green box, and this is the VST. So if I click on that, you'll see it opens up this UI. And this is the UI built by Cherry Audio, and right now if I hit keys on my keyboard, nothing happens, and that is because we want to be able to control where it comes from. So by default, we have this MIDI in block, and we can connect it. And if I click here, I can just drag it over like that. And now you'll see when I hit some keys, this wire is lighting up. And that's Gig Performer's way of telling you, hey, right now there's MIDI flowing to this plugin. But of course, we still can't hear the audio, which we would all probably really like to do. And that's because we need to now connect the audio to its outputs. So we can do that simply by dragging the outputs to the outputs here. Now, when I play, I've got some sound coming from the whirlybird. And this, in effect, really is your first sound, and it scales beautifully. But before we go to doing that, I want to open up the whirlybird so you can see what's happening. When I press a key, you'll see this plugin is being affected. But you'll also see that there are some things on this interface that we may want to be able to control. And probably the most common thing you're going to want to control on any VST instrument is volume. Now over here, you'll see there is a little volume knob, fader knob here. And when I move it right now with my mouse, that volume is getting adjusted. But of course, we cannot adjust this volume with our mouse during live performance. And that's where the panel view of our rack space really comes in handy. So if you don't need to control anything, this would be done. You can come over here, double click, and name this whirlybird. And that would be your sound, right? You could switch through that. But if we want to control the volume, then we're going to need to go to our panel view. And you'll see this looks a lot like a rack front panel, right? And all we need to do is come into edit mode and choose any one of these little widgets that we would like. And these widgets look like real controllers. I'm just going to go ahead and choose a yellow knob. And I can drag that and reposition it any way I like. Now, I always tell people when they're getting started with Gig Performer that widgets get mapped in two directions. And I realize that may be advanced lingo here, but all that really means is a widget, or this little knob that I've dragged on the screen, must be mapped or connected to a parameter on a VST, meaning the control that you want to control, and, if you would like, also to a physical knob on your device. So we're going to do that. Now that I've dragged in this widget, I'm going to come down here to Plugin, and I'm going to choose Whirlybird. Now you'll see right away when I do that, I'm going to move myself. You'll see right away when I do that, that all of the parameters that I would like to control are listed over here. Now this is quite a large list. And in some VSTs, it's even larger. And so the easiest way to map your parameter is to just click this Learn Parameter button right here. And then you'll see the VST opens up, and I'm going to move myself again. I want to map this volume. Now I'll move this out of the way so you can see, but Gig Performer noticed what I was using and now has mapped volume to this widget. So I'm going to go ahead and exit this. Well, here's a better demo. I'm going to turn off learning mode. Okay. And then, since I'm done editing, I am also going to exit edit mode. Now you'll notice if I move this widget, can you see it? This little volume knob is moving. Just like that. So I have created a way to control this volume knob using this widget. Now, this is advantageous for a lot of reasons, and the primary reason is I don't actually need or want to see that VST on my screen when I'm performing. Maybe all I want to see is that volume knob. That's the only thing I need to access. And so Gig Performer lets all of those instruments get tucked neatly away in the wiring view so that in our front panel, we can see only the most important things. And that can be really helpful and powerful. So now that I've mapped this volume, I can play. And as I adjust this volume right now with my mouse, but I'm going to move it to my controller in a second. Just like that. Okay. Now, of course, no one wants to use their mouse when they're playing, and so these widgets can also be connected to a controller. And today I'm going to be using my Novation Launch Control XL, but really any MIDI controller device will work. So when I enter, I'll back up here, edit mode, and click the widget that I want to control, you'll notice there is a widget properties area over here. And this gives us access to many, many things. I can't go over all of them in 1 hour, certainly. But for our purposes today, I want to control this knob. And I want to do it from a device like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this Learn button right here. And you'll see when I do, it turns red. And if I go ahead and move a fader, you will see that widget begins to move, and it is learning that thing right there, right? So now that widget is mapped. Anytime I move this widget, that widget is moving. So now I no longer need to touch my screen with my mouse. So here's my mouse, and I can control that widget through that little fader. In this case, it's a knob on my controller. So really powerful ability here is going to allow me to control that parameter. But you probably want to control more than that, is my guess. And so you can repeat this as many times as you like. So if there was another parameter you wanted to control, and I guess I always think of, here, let's pull in this echo one. So maybe you want to be able to turn some of these things on and off, right? You want some of these devices to be turned on and some of them off. Maybe I want this delay to be turned on and off. I can actually do the same exact thing where I can come to my edit view, can add a button, just like this. Can go down here, choose my whirlybird, hit learn parameter, and then I can click this delay. Now, I have the ability using this button to turn my delay on and off, which can be mapped. Now, it's also important to note that this is not the only way to change these parameters. And in many cases, you don't want to do it this way because maybe you have several different things that you want to control, and it's actually too much to control manually. And so in that case, we have the ability to use something called variations. And variations inside of Gig Performer are quite simply storing the settings of your widgets. So on the left-hand side, you'll see I have this whirlybird here, and I'm going to hit this plus button and choose New Variation. I'm going to call this Echo. I'll call it Delay. Delay on. And I'll hit Enter. Now, in this setting here, I have no delay. And if I would like to have delay on this one, all I need to do is turn on that widget. Now, I have the ability to turn that on and off just by moving through those variations. Now, if you're asking yourself, Brett, that's all great, but can I move through variations without my mouse? The answer is yes, you can. And on this particular device, I have, I'm a little bit backwards here, these two buttons set up. So I'm able to go forward and backwards just by hitting these buttons to move through these variations. Now, these rack spaces can get more complex, and oftentimes you may want to have more than one instrument. And so I'm going to show you a rack space that I built for the song Sky Full of Stars. And this is a demo that I did in Sonic Brilliance, which is a cohort that helps keyboard players move from whatever they are to live performance software. And in this case, somebody was working on this tune, and so I did an example of this song during one of our classes, and this is what we came up with. So you'll see it's a similar setup to what we were doing in the previous one, but now instead of having one instrument, there are two instruments. So I've got a piano here, and this is an Arturia piano, and then I have Serum, which is a VST, and this is just for like a big super saw like pad. And I have that running through filters from Kilohertz. This filter is completely free, so if you haven't checked out the Kilohertz plugins, they have a very powerful free bundle that you can get, and their stuff is really good and super stable. So I've got these two different sounds running through filters and then through a compressor before it hits my outputs. Now on this side, I have something called a side-chained compressor. And if you're not familiar with that, do a quick Google search. It's the thing that makes the synthesizers go womp, 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 which you'll hear in a moment. Now, we're going to ignore this box here for a moment, but just for clarity in demonstration today, I recorded myself playing so I didn't have to talk and play at the same time and also control the software. So this is just me playing earlier. And this one here would be me actually playing the keys. Now, in this particular song, there are two different settings. There is a setting where I want everything very quiet and muted, and then there is a setting where I want everything very large. And so if I hit play, you'll start to hear what I'm talking about. I have two variations. My first variation sounds like this. Okay, so that is pretty muted, and the reason for that is I have these filter cutoffs set. Now you'll see when I jump to sidechain that the widget setting for this sidechain knob moves. I've been playing with this a lot this morning. So when I move, you'll hear immediately, and I'll do this from my controller here, the jump to the sidechain. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I also have these guys mapped. And if you're familiar with this song, you'll know that these pads kind of increase and decrease in size, and the filters open and close. And so on my two faders here, I'm actually adjusting the filter cutoff, which you'll do as you play. And then that single press of the button brings in the sidechain so you can hear that bouncing up and down. So far we've covered our wiring view, which is just connecting blocks with wires. We've also covered widgets and mapping the widgets. Now I want to talk just briefly about VSTs, and one of the reasons that I think they're more compelling and increasingly more compelling than hardware. And the reason for that is sometimes you don't need to do very much. We did an interview a while back with Ruben Valtierra, and if you haven't checked that interview out, I'll link that below. But he was sharing that when he began to move to Gig Performer, he started to notice that his speed in programming increased for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons that he cited was that instead of trying to make his hardware keyboards sound like an Oberheim or sound like a Moog, he just got an emulation of that device. And so I thought it would be good to show this example. This is an example from the song Jump. So if you wanted to play the song Jump, you would follow the exact same format. You'd come in here and right mouse click, and this device is from Arturia. So I would come and find that OP. I would click on it, pull it in, and connect it. And then I would say, okay, what I want to be able to do is play the song Jump. So I would look at the presets from famous songs, and whoop, I've got a jump preset. Could it be that this was already made for me? And the answer would be yes. It could be that it was pre-made for you. And so a lot of times in programming, it's actually really compelling to switch over to a software-based solution because some of these sounds are just already made and they're already close. If you've been following us, we have a wonderful supporter named Narf from Narf Sounds. His name is not Narf. His YouTube channel is Narf Sounds, and he's actually put together several packages of 80s music that he's programmed inside of Gig Performer using the Arturia V collection. So if you're playing 80s tunes and you want to check that out, he's built some fantastic and compelling sounds using Arturia and Gig Performer. So we've gone through our wiring view, we've gone through our panels and our editing. I want to go through the setlist view briefly because this is one of the ways that Gig Performer becomes really functional in live performance. So up at the top here, you'll see we've got set lists. And if I click on set lists, you'll see I am presented with something that looks a little bit different than the previous screens. So I want to show you what we're looking at here. At the bottom, first time I've done that today. Okay. At the bottom, I have a list of all of the rack spaces that I've created. And at the top, I have an area where I can create songs. So when I click these triple dots here, I am given, got a question coming from Michael. I'm going to pull that up. Is there an easy way to easily transpose on the fly? For example, if the singer needs a song a half step lower for the night. Yes, you can absolutely transpose. There are several different ways that you can go about doing it. So if you're doing something that's a pretty simple sound, you can come into your MIDI in block and adjust the transpose here. For more complicated sounds, we also do have a global transpose function, which will transpose everything. And I'm seeing a reminder to demonstrate patch persist. So check this out. If I double click, there is a MIDI patch persist option that I can turn on. And I'm going to reorder these just by dragging. So if I am playing Sky Full of Stars and I switch, oops, have to turn it on here. I'm playing Sky Full of Stars and switch. That whirlybird is going to stay sustaining until I move to my next sound. So same thing in the opposite direction. Okay. MIDI patch persist. Pretty simple. Okay. Next thing that needs to happen here. We're in setlist view. So we can add our songs to our sounds. So if I click the triple dots here, I can create a new song. And I just click create new song and I can give it a name. We'll call it Sky Full of Stars now for demo. And I have all sorts of different options here, right? I've got a key. I've got an option to transpose. So I know there was a transpose question. Here's another way to do it right here if you wanted to. And of course, you can check out the global transpose as well. You have tempo, which will set the tempo automatically. And once you're happy with this, you can hit OK. Now I have Sky Full of Stars, and you'll see across the top, I have different song sections. For each of these sections, I can choose any rack space that I would like. So for the intro, I would probably choose this default version of Sky Full of Stars. And when I get to the chorus, I want the sidechain version. So now, when I'm moving between these song parts, rather than just rack spaces, I have the ability to change my sounds. So if I started here, and I have my filters turned down, when I move to my next section, I've got that sidechain turned on, which is not sidechaining because this is not happening. Able to switch through this way. Now let's say the next sound that I want to use is not from this rack space. No problem. I can come into the verse and choose a different rack space. So I can choose the whirlybird here. And now I have the ability to move between all of these sounds in the order of the song. Now, there are some other advantages to this framework, and I want to show you. If we do a new song, and I want to reuse one of these sounds, I can do that. So if for the intro I want the whirlybird here, I can do it. And I can save a different widget setting just like that if I would like. So I can really save a lot of computer resource and just a lot of time by not recreating piano patches or commonly used things. And I can also save different widget settings straight in to my song parts. So this is our setlist view, and I'm getting ready here to wrap up. So if there are any other questions that you would like answered, do feel free to put them in the chat. I would love to answer them live for you while we're all here together, but I want to do a quick review of what we've covered so far, so you can go back through and check this out as you wish. So for starters, Gig Performer lets you control virtual instruments and effects or hardware or both, all from one location. And if you need to perform live, or if you want to just be playing music, you're a hobbyist, you're playing a lot of stuff in your bedroom, Gig Performer is going to give you the ability to create your sounds. The way that we create sounds in Gig Performer is in something called a rack space, which is a container for instruments, effects, and widgets. We can easily create our sounds by connecting blocks together with wires. These sounds can be inserted by right mouse clicking and choosing any of the VSTs that you would like and connecting them together, much like this. Once that's done, we can control any parameters we want, but at Gig Performer, we recommend you control only the most important parameters so you can really focus on your playing. That's when we move over to our other view, which is the panels view in edit mode. We can add our widgets, and as a reminder, widgets are always linked in two different directions. Widgets are linked first to a particular plugin, like the whirlybird, to an effect. So here's a phaser, and then lastly, to a button. So if you want to have a button that lets you control it, you can map it, and you have the ability to control those things. Now, once you've created all of the sounds that you want to use, or at least the sounds that you need for a particular set, you come over here into set lists. And then these set lists can be used to put your sounds in the correct order as you switch through. And these widget settings can also be stored in snapshots. See, we got a question coming in from Benjamin Shreve. Is there a patch persist option for variations as well? It's a really good question, Benjamin. So there are some options that we have for patch persist in variations, but it is not a default. And the reason for that is it's often not needed. So for example, if you're needing that patch persist, sometimes it makes more sense to create two separate rack spaces. But let me show you something that I do. Can I demo it with this? Yes. Yeah, okay. So if I want to have the ability to persist my sounds, what I can do is, and I should insert another, let's see. So now I have a piano and a whirlybird. And if I want to have the ability to patch persist, the way that I always go about doing it is by blocking note on messages. So I can add in two of these guys here, and then get myself out of the way. What can be done is I can map one of these to one MIDI in, and one of these to the other MIDI in. Hopefully I didn't do that backwards. Yeah. And then what I can do is block note on, block note on. So what this will do is if I play a chord and swap these, that sound is going to sustain until I press the next one, which will then sustain because it's blocking the note on messages. And in terms of concern about, this method not being as friendly on CPU, we also have a plug-in, can't remember what it's called. It allows your plugins to persist in variations in the same way that your rack spaces persist. And that's a scriptlet that you can actually get for free from our forums that will allow you to have that functionality. I have found, and I use a very large setup for playing a church service where I probably at least 20 plugins open with this format, and my CPU never really goes above about 30%. So it's not too poor to do. It's definitely workable. So yes, you can create that functionality either by blocking note on or by checking out that scriptlet from the community. Okay. From the point of view of optimizing the use of CPU on the computer, what happens when we switch rack spaces? Are the plugins used in one rack space disabled when we switch? It's a good question. It's a technical question. I'm not actually sure what's going on under the hood. So I am afraid that I may answer that question incorrectly. If Nemanja is still here, he can maybe chime in and he might know better. But what I can say is that it is disabled enough, whether truly disabled or not, that you will notice as you move through rack spaces, certain rack spaces will be more labor intensive on your computer, and that intensity will disappear when you switch rack spaces. So in terms of what's going on under the hood, I think I would be misspeaking to answer that truly, but you will notice when you move between your rack spaces, the computer adjusting. So something is happening. And Gig Performer really does do a good job with optimizing your computer in terms of efficiency. We also talk a lot about how different VSTs take a different amount of energy from your computer. And so if you go to our forums, people will have discussions about which ones are most efficient, which might be helpful for you to check out. I think I was talking about set lists, but I've somewhat lost my train of thought. That's okay, though. If you have any more questions, pop them in. Nemanja wrote in, depends on whether patch persist is active. Yeah, let's see. This is good. Okay, so friends, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and your energy. If you haven't tried Gig Performer, give it a try. We have a 14-day free trial inside of our website. Go to gigperformer.com. Check it out. We have that link in the description right now. And do join our forum because it is a wealth of information and support and knowledge. So check that out. I want to let you know that coming up very soon, we have a whole host of exciting guests. We have Kwame Yaboa, who I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, who is a keyboard player for many people, but probably most notably Cat Stevens. We've got Robert from Cherry Audio coming. They're one of our partners. So if you are interested in some behind-the-scenes looks at their products and how they integrate with Gig Performer, you can check them out as well. We've got Tim Storace coming on very soon from Why Not, which is a Yes tribute band. They're doing some phenomenal things. Bob Luna, which if you haven't seen his videos, do check them out as well. So stay tuned because we've got some amazing guests coming on that I think you're really going to enjoy. Elkane wrote in one final question here. What is a good CPU level? I think this question is probably relative. When I perform, I like to see that number in the 30s. If it gets higher than that, I've never had an issue, but I start to wonder if I could make some different choices. I do know some folks perform higher than that. I think the real question to be asking yourself is, how is my computer performing? That's the real question to ask yourself, because if your computer is performing really well, then you don't need to be worried about that number. I think that number starts to become more relevant when you're trying to figure out, why is my computer not doing what I want it to do? Which, by the way, we have two very well thought out, robust guides on how to optimize your computer for live performance. So if you think my computer could be performing better, go check those out. I'll leave links for that in the description as well. We have the ultimate guide to optimizing your Windows PC for live performance, as well as a Mac version. Friends, thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you guys soon, and do connect with us in the comments or at the forum. Enjoy the rest of your day.